There is a quiet strength inside the people who grew up in the 1970s. Most of the world never noticed where it came from, because that decade did more than raise a generation. It shaped the nervous system. It carved a certain kind of inner toughness. One science is only now beginning to fully understand. Let's clear something up. Today, when we talk about raising children, we usually believe that more rules, more supervision, more structure automatically create better outcomes. But the children of the 70s quietly proved that idea wrong. Picture this. You are 7 years old. Breakfast is over. Your mother points toward the front door. She gives you one rule. Be back before dark. That's it. No tracking, no messages, no adult schedules waiting for you. Just you, your friends, your block, and the wide open space of decision. Whole afternoons vanished into the woods, into forts made of sticks and loose boards, into long, wandering games built from nothing but imagination. If someone got hurt, you figured it out. If a game stopped being fun, you created another one. If arguments broke out, you handled them yourselves. Not because you had to, but because nobody else was there to do it. This wasn't neglect, it was trust. And researchers have discovered something remarkable. That kind of free, unsupervised play physically reshapes the brain. It strengthens creativity, problem solving, and what psychologists call executive function. Your ability to plan, to adapt, to think for yourself without being told what to do. Now imagine riding your bike around the block. You notice the Johnson's car parked at a strange time. You slow down, you read the moment. You already know which yards are safe to cut through and which ones will get you yelled at. You can sense when the older kids are in a good mood and when it's smarter to disappear. This isn't fear, it's awareness, street smarts. When you move through the world without adults hovering, your instincts sharpen. You learn to read tone, posture, energy, risk. Researchers might call it hyper-aware social perception, but really you were just paying attention, and it made you sharper than many children today who have every social moment explained to them. Now jump ahead, 3:30 on a Tuesday afternoon. The bus drops you off. You walk up the driveway. You reach under the flower pot for the key. You unlock the door. You step inside, no fear, just the quiet sound of your shoes on the floor and the low hum of the refrigerator. You drop your bag. You make yourself something to eat. You turn on the TV or you start your homework. You might call a friend on the house phone. This wasn't about being alone. It was about being capable. Every afternoon, you proved to yourself that you could handle those hours, that you didn't need supervision to be okay. Something permanent settled into your bones. During those quiet afternoons, when problems showed up, you didn't hunt for someone else to fix them. You didn't search for someone to blame. You looked at what you could change. Psychologists call it an internal locus of control. But back then, it wasn't a theory. It was just life. You fell. You stood back up. You broke something. You fixed it. Or you found a way to explain it. That kind of independence roots itself deep. Now think about those hours. After homework was finished, your 1 hour of television was over, and dinner still felt far away. You'd walk into the living room while your mother folded laundry and say 2 words, "I'm bored." You already knew her answer. Go find something to do. That was it. No phone, no tablet, no instant relief, just you and that restless feeling. So you went outside. You watched the clouds. You sorted your cards for the third time. You called a friend who was bored too. And you sat in that boredom together until one of you finally had an idea. You learned something important. Boredom was not a crisis. It was a signal. Your mind telling you it was ready to create something new. Today, boredom gets treated like an emergency. But you let it sit. You let it stretch. You let it build. And sooner or later, something always came out of it. That comfort with discomfort goes far beyond childhood. These are people who can sit in silence, stand in long lines, live with uncertainty, because they learned early that every moment does not need noise or answers. And here is the part that truly matters. Research shows that children who spent regular time understimulated grow up with stronger brains for creativity, reflection, and original thinking. In simple terms, boredom trains your mind. to create from nothing, which brings us to the oak tree. At the end of the street, you remember it, the thick branches, how far away the ground looked from the top. You didn't climb safe trees. You climbed the kind where a fall would not end with laughter. You rode your bike without a helmet, wind tearing through your hair, flying down hills, letting go of the handlebars, because that's what made you look cool. You jumped off bridges into questionable water. You built skateboard ramps out of scraps, even though they were clearly not safe at all. Pain was part of the deal, and yes, you got hurt sometimes. Skinned knees, rolled ankles, maybe even a cracked bone. But something powerful came with that. You did not learn danger from warnings. You learned it by living it. You built your own sense of what was truly risky and what only looked scary. That tall tree, you knew exactly how high you could climb before the branches began to give way. That bike jump, you could feel the difference between a hard but fun landing and a ride to the emergency room. This was not carelessness. It was real-world wisdom. While other generations may freeze, when things feel uncertain, you learned how to adjust and keep moving forward. You understood that some chances are worth taking because you had already felt both the sting of mistakes and the reward of bravery, psychologists might call it, a calibrated sense of risk. But to you, it was simply knowing your line because you had already found it. Then there were those weekends when no one was free. Saturday morning arrived with no plans, no friends answering the phone, just you and two wide open days ahead of you. And somehow that felt completely fine. You could disappear into comic books, act out long stories with your toys, draw pictures, read the same book again and again. You rode your bike alone. You wandered your block by yourself. You spent entire afternoons just thinking. This wasn't being cut off. It was being okay with yourself. You learned early that your sense of who you were did not depend on constant approval. You discovered that being alone is not the same as being lonely, and that forced independence shaped something rare, a comfort with solitude that almost feels unreal today. These are people who can spend full weekends alone and come back feeling better, not worse. They do not need noise, screens, and crowds. What experts now call essential for mental health, the ability to calm yourself and feel okay inside your own head, was simply your version of keeping busy. And it created adults who solve problems differently, handle pressure in their own way, and build relationships with a kind of emotional awareness that is slowly disappearing. But that awareness grew in quiet moments you probably forgot. Something happened at school. Someone said something cruel. You failed a test. You argued with your best friend. You lay on your bed, staring at the ceiling, feeling that tight heat in your chest. Anger, shame, disappointment. And here's what mattered. You could not instantly message someone. You could not scroll for comfort. You could not even call. The house phone was busy, and cell phones did not exist yet. So you stayed with the feeling. You went to your room. You stared at the ceiling. Maybe you punched your pillow once or twice. You let it move through you until it faded. This was not pushing emotions down. It was something deeper. You learn that feelings arrive, and then they leave, that you can feel let down without making it the end of the world, that you can have conflict without rushing to fix it or needing instant reassurance. What psychologists call emotional self-control, one of the strongest predictors of success, was simply you learning how to sit with your own feelings. People who grew up in the 1970s do not need constant comfort because they built inner tools to handle what is happening inside. They learned that emotions pass, that discomfort can be survived, that not every feeling needs a reaction. Now think about waiting. Really think about it. Your favorite TV show, you thought about it all week. You planned around being in front of a television so you would not miss it. And if it ended on a cliffhanger, you waited 7 full days to find out what happened. No one taught you this. This was simply life, and it built something strong, the ability to wait for good things. You learned that waiting makes the reward feel deeper, that some things are worth patience. Today's world is built for now. Fast answers, instant shows, next day everything. But your mind learned a slower rhythm. Christmas morning felt special because you waited a year. The first day of summer break felt powerful because you earned it through 9 months of school. That new toy mattered because you saved for it. And researchers have discovered something important. People who can delay pleasure tend to have lower addiction rates, perform better in school, and build steadier relationships. Children of the 1970s received this training quietly, woven into everyday life. You were not studying patience. You were living in a slower world. That shaped your brain to wait. But even patience did not make everything easy. Remember the day you wiped out on your bike? Knees bleeding, hands scraped. Your parents looked at you and said, "You were fine. Get back on." So you did get back on. You lost the neighborhood baseball game. You struck out with the bases loaded. And you felt that heavy drop in your stomach. The next day, you played again. Your science fair volcano did not erupt. Your book report came back with a C. You did not make the team. You forgot your lines in the school play. And every time you felt the sharp sting of missing the mark. But here is what never happened. There was no crowd of adults rushing in to protect your feelings, no participation ribbons to soften the moment, no padded grades to guard your confidence. You failed, you felt it, and then you figured out what to change the next time. This was not cruelty. This was how resilience was built. While other generations may fall apart, after rejection or disappointment, you carry a quiet inner voice that says, "All right, what can I learn from this?" You see failure as information, not as your identity. You learned early that hitting the ground does not define you. Standing back up does, and you needed that strength. In the messy world of childhood friendships, picture a summer afternoon at the park. No adults keeping score, no referees for emotions. If someone said they would meet you and never showed, you had to decide what that meant. If two friends were arguing and you were stuck in between, you walked that tightrope alone. If someone's feelings were hurt during a game, you had to make it right. Without a teacher stepping in, all of this made you a quiet student of people. You learned to notice small signals, the tightening around someone's eyes, the pause before a sentence. You could feel tension in a group before anyone spoke. You learned that words do not always tell the whole truth. You knew which friend could take a joke and which one could not. You saw how groups formed, who led, who smoothed things over, who followed. You learned when to push, when to let go, when to apologize, and when to hold your ground. Some people think less supervision created distant adults, but the truth is the opposite. You had to develop strong social skills because you handled complex friendships. Without adult referees, you learned to hear tone, to read between the lines, and to understand that most communication happens beneath the surface. And now, years later, many of those same children stand in their own kitchens, watching their own kids struggle, homework, friendships, disappointment. They feel the pull to jump in, to fix it, but they pause. They give their children room to struggle, not because they do not care, but because they know that too much protection creates fear, not confidence. They understand that safe risks build real strength. They can watch their child wrestle with a problem and resist stepping in right away. And when their child falls short, they ask a simple question: what do you think you could try differently next time? Because that is the question they were taught to ask themselves. They choose capability over comfort. They believe short-term discomfort leads to long-term strength, that struggle shapes character, that independence builds security. These are not ideas that they picked up from a parenting book. Their minds were shaped by life. They carry something rare in today's loud, always-on world: a calm confidence. That comes from knowing they can handle what life brings. Their minds were shaped by freedom, sharpened by boredom, tuned by risk. They are living proof that maybe we have made raising strong humans more complicated than it needs to be, and that sometimes the greatest gift is not protection from hardship, but the tools to face it on your own.